Happy Easter, everyone. We're the Hills Maniacs, and today we're going to be reviewing one of the most realistic religious movies of all time, The Passion of the Christ. So, if you don't know what this movie was, it was about the death of Jesus Christ, like on the cross and everything else, and the events leading up to that. Essentially, it was directed by Mel Gibson. I don't know what year did it come out. I think it was like early 2000s. I think. I don't think it's. I don't think it's that old. It was probably like 2009 or 2010. But
I think it was earlier.
This was the first actually religious movie I think I heard to receive an R rating, just because of how gruesome it is. Like, it actually shows everything that Jesus went through. They whipped him, they beat him, hanging him on the cross, and all of that is shown in this movie. And I think a lot of that brutality that we see in this movie turned people away from the movie. Like, I heard a lot of people didn't like it because of that, but I felt that was the perfect thing to do, because it was meant to show the pain that Jesus endured in those times, when he was killed and then eventually resurrected and everything else, as you see in the Bible. And I thought they did a nice job of showing us that, so that we can feel what he went through.
Yeah, I kind of like that, because you don't see many things like that, because they don't want to scare people, or take them away from it. But the whole point was so that we could feel that emotion, we could feel the pain, we could basically be there with Jesus, in that moment, and understand what he was going through. And I think that's what Mel Gibson was going for, and it worked. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty intense at some points. But that's what he went through. So just picture, we get kind of squirmish just watching it. Just imagine how he felt just actually being there. So it was
and it's better than because when you're reading it in the Bible, it's you picture it in your head, just like with any other book you're reading. You picture these events happening, but you don't actually get that accurate depiction of what it was like. In this, you can actually feel the pain and everything else, and especially when this was playing in theaters. I don't know if it had the surround sound speakers and all that at the time, but just hearing and seeing everything on that big screen, like you said, it makes you feel like you're there, And I like that they also did this movie in complete Hebrew, with English subtitles, even in the theaters and stuff, because that's what would have been spoken in those times, 2,000 years ago, or however long it was.
Right, and it made you, again, it made you feel like you were there, because it was set in the native language of, Aramaic and Hebrew and everything of what they spoke back in that time period. And so it would have made it feel more like you could connect with not just Jesus, but all the characters that were going through different things in this movie. And I do like too that they flashed back at certain points, when Jesus' mother Mary, saw him carrying the cross and stuff. It kind of flashed back to him as a kid, or when he was younger as a carpenter, and it showed us those flashbacks of other stories that we've heard throughout the Bible, without having to go too in depth with it.
Right, they were just,
and it was certain moments that triggered these flashbacks. It wasn't just the whole movie was all right, we'll just jump cut back and
here's
forth.
A random,
some movies do. It was oh, she saw him in this position, and then it was it took when he fell down carrying the cross, and she saw that, it flashed back to a time when he fell down as a kid, and she was remembering that time. Or when he saved Mary Magdalene, and she crawled to him, and then it showed it again here, where he was kneeled down in front of her, but for a different reason, because he was trying to carry the cross, so it was but it had these flashbacks, even for John and Peter and everybody else it showed that had some sort of relationship with Jesus. It showed the flashbacks to their story and how they met. And it started off with the betrayal of Judas and taking the 30 pieces of silver, and then it also showed his what would you call that, his guilt, I guess, for
yeah,
what he
like
did
throughout the whole movie, you could see.
And then
yeah.
he eventually ends up killing himself, just like we read in the Bible, and it showed that in this movie, his guilt got to the point where he was like, I just betrayed Jesus, like I'm not worthy
right,
of
and he's
anything
kinda,
now. Like,
yeah, and he's kind of tortured by it too. He starts seeing things like little demon
like
children
demons,
and stuff
yeah.
like basically he's seeing the devil because the devil sort of made him do that.
And on that note, we do see the devil throughout this movie. They had this. It was a woman playing the devil in the movie, but I think the devil was still supposed to be a man, but. It had this devil basically in the background. Not only there were points where the devil was tempting Jesus to he was basically saying like, you can join me and I won't make you do this, and right. Jesus was like, no, I'm doing what God told me to do. Or there were other parts where throughout everything that was happening where it was pure evil, you could see the devil in the background, kind of, and it kind of gives you that sense of like anytime you do something wrong, the devil's standing in the background,
exactly.
Smiling just like they were in this movie. So it gives you that kind of like eerie kind of essence that like it could actually like just picture that whenever you do something wrong, is that the devil is right there behind you, smiling and trying to tempt you to go the wrong direction. I kind of like that too, because it did give us that sense of the devil was in control of that entire situation, basically,
exactly.
and them wanting to kill Jesus was the devil's doing. Well, it was technically part of God's plan, but it was. The devil
right.
was egging it on in a way.
See, and that's the kind of extra stuff they added in here that, it's not said in the Bible, like the devil walked in the background and blah, blah, blah. But he's there because of what they're doing. Right. They're killing God's son. That's a sin. And that's what Jesus is meant to do, die on the cross for all the sins.
Right.
So the devil in this movie being used to represent that and lingering in the background and everything,
yep.
I thought that was a really good decision to add that in. And really I like that no scene in this movie was wasted. There wasn't like random things they threw in there or little side characters or whatever. Everything was basically, maybe not everything was exactly how it was in the Bible, but like, or lines of dialogue that weren't said like someone calls someone an idiot. I don't think that was a word at the time, back in Hebrew and stuff, but I do like that. Nothing was really a waste of time, or like this scene is pointless. Like you're getting there's a lot of like these movies that are based on real events type of thing that they just add in, like the whole movie of Titanic. None of that really happened.
That's true.
Or at least if it did, it didn't happen the way it did. And they had to make it a 3-4 hour movie just to add in all this extra stuff to make it a movie, Yeah. And I'm glad that like Mel Gibson and everyone that put this movie together did it exactly how it was said in the Bible. They took the references from the Bible, and that was their script, basically was... or what they would adapt it from, into a script was from the Bible. It's right there. It says all these things that happened. I do wish that maybe they would have added because I think the movie was only like an hour and a half. I do feel like maybe they could have added a few more flashbacks or something to kind of say what exactly Jesus did. And by that, what I mean is that
what he was accused of doing.
Yeah, because we don't really see that, because it kind of just starts off with Judas betraying Jesus. And for anybody who might be watching this that's like a new Christian or whatever, that like maybe a friend of theirs said, hey, you should check out this movie to get a feel for what Jesus went through, and maybe they haven't read the Bible yet or whatever, like it didn't really depict all the stuff Jesus did leading up to that. Like I feel like exactly. Yeah. Like it showed a couple things, but they were like quick flashbacks.
Right. Or I feel even like maybe the stuff with like Mary Magdalene and stuff.
Right. And I feel like they could have done maybe more of that, but it didn't obviously it's not going to take away from the movie because that's the stuff that really happened.
Right. But I mean the whole premise of the movie was the death and resurrection of Jesus. And
right.
So I guess it's starting off with his childhood and and building up to it would have been too.
It would have been a 4-hour movie. You know, I'm not saying they needed to do that, but like, I'd think maybe they could have tacked on an extra 15, 20 minutes or something. Just kind of show, maybe even start with that as a flashback. And I do like that, you know, like most movies, you know, they'll start off with something happening and then you get like the title card and or it flashes up to the sky or something and the title of the movie appears. You know, I'm glad they didn't like really do that either. It was just there was nothing in between to like take you out of the moment. Everything was meant to just, we're here, this is where we're going. You know, you're following Jesus the whole time, even in the flashbacks and everything else. You get a feel for what his disciples are going through, his mother and all that. And I thought the acting in all those scenes was really well done, especially the guy who played Jesus as well.
I like that Jim Caviezel was the one that played Jesus, and they're actually making a sequel to The Passion of the Christ, which will, I think, deal with the resurrection, you know, when they find the open tomb and things. And then was it 40 days, I believe, when Jesus walked around before he went back up to heaven, and the people he talked to, the things he did there. Also directed by Mel Gibson, and it will have Jim Caviezel returning as Jesus. But he went through a lot for this movie. There were times where I think we heard he was struck by lightning during filming at one point.
Right.
He ended up actually, like, because obviously they didn't actually whip him with the whips, but I think one of the things actually hit him and tore his skin, and he had to go to the hospital. So there was just a lot that happened. I don't know if things happened to other actors too, or it was just Jim Caviezel, but he went through a lot playing this and still wanted to come back and keep doing it. Like, he could have very easily said, "Oh, I got struck by lightning, I'm done. Like, I ain't doing this." I mean, I don't know when that happened. That could have been at the end or whatever. But even every injury he went through, everything he had to overcome to do this, and he still wanted to play the part.
Right, and you could tell the devil was working against him, like
trying to get the movie.
Like, hey, you're not gonna make this movie. Nope, I'm not allowing that. So that was kind of neat that he went through real life stuff while filming this, and still wanted to endure all that, because it's like a depiction of Jesus taking all this pain. It's like, well, I can take that pain too. You know, if I'm going to play this role, I might as well take this pain, you know, or whatever.
Well, and there's a lot of these, you know, religious or Christian movies that try to base things off of true events or biblical stories, I guess I should say. Because either, whether it be the true event of somebody now or somebody from, you know, back in Bible times. Right. And a lot of them change the subject and change the, you know, oh, we'll just add this in, nobody will care, like we'll take this part out, whatever. And this movie didn't really do that, so I think that worked good for me.
Right, because there's a movie called like Noah that was supposed to be about Noah's Ark and all that stuff, and they added in all this stuff. I think there's like talking trees or something like that come to life and help Noah, and it wasn't based off the Bible at all, you know. And stuff like that, it's like they say it's to get you to come see it because it's a religious movie, you know, but it's not really, or it doesn't depict things accurately. So I appreciate that they actually took the time to really like make sure this felt as real as possible to the source material, which of course is the Bible, but like to make it feel like this is what actually happens, as if we were looking through a time, you know, looking through time or whatever, and seeing those events play out in front of us.
Well, and they say all the time, you know, there's certain times that you're in the mood to watch certain things, and I think this is one of those movies that you should definitely check out on Easter or around Easter.
Right.
Whether you're religious or not, you know, check it out and just take it in and just understand that, you know. And I get that there's a lot of, you know, maybe criticisms towards the movie and stuff, but when it comes down to it, that's how it happened, and they did a pretty good job of explaining that and you know, keeping it as accurate as possible. I mean, obviously things probably changed a little bit just to make it more relatable for the movie, but for the most part, it remained accurate for, I'm not going to say word for word from the Bible, because I'm sure translations and things may have changed, but you know, it's pretty accurate to what we read.
Right, and what's cool too is that we mentioned how it was in all Hebrew. When you go to change the language and stuff, like there's no English setting.
Right, it's in Hebrew,
you get English subtitles, but there's
right.
I think it's Hebrew or Aramaic and stuff like that. So they did make it. Like, they even thought of that, too. Yeah. Like, they're not going to change it to English. And I'm glad it wasn't one of those movies that, like, oh, we're going to do the whole thing in English, you know, even though it wasn't. You know, we see a lot of movies like that, too, where it's supposed to be based in, like, Japan, like, as a real Japanese event or something. But they get, like, American actors, or the actors have American accents or whatever, which wouldn't have been a good portrayal of that time period, whatever time they're trying to do, or whatever, you know, just an example. So I'm glad that they didn't go that route, and they actually did do it in Hebrew as it would have been in real life. Just everything about this movie, you know, like we mentioned, the realism and everything else, it is worth checking out. Not even just on Easter. If you just want to watch something that's like, if you're doing a Bible study with your family or something, and you're going through the books of the Bible and learning about Jesus and what he did, it's a good depiction of what he actually did and what he actually went through. There's all kinds of different things out there to check out, but I think this one is probably the best one in terms of showing what happened to Jesus and everything else.
And especially in today's day, you know, with everything going on in the world, maybe this is the kind of stuff we need to start watching. And I think that's why movies like the movie Jesus Revolution, you know, did so well, because that one did amazing in the box office, at least from what I understand. You know, a lot of people went and saw it, and people were saying great things about it. So if you haven't seen that one, go check that one out, because that was a good movie. But I think that's the kind of stuff we need nowadays. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's wars going on right now. There's all kinds of stuff, and maybe movies like this is exactly what we need. So,
and that's why it's good that people aren't afraid to make movies like this. Like you mentioned, Jesus Revolution, that was based on real events too. Like with a real pastor and all that kind of stuff. So I think movies like that need to be made more. And we see that not just in these kind of religious movies either, but just like there are a lot of movies out there that are based on real events. While they may not be as accurate as it was, you know, or whatever, or they might have added in stuff, it's still... You get movies about, you know, like there's Elvis movies and stuff, all kinds of stuff out there that people enjoy those types of things because you learn this history, at least the history that they want us to learn or whatever. But I like this movie, and I think they should do more movies like this. You mentioned, you know, they're doing a sequel to this one. I think there needs to be more movies about the Bible and kind of stuff that happened in a more accurate way.
As long as it's accurate.
Like if Mel Gibson did like a Noah's Ark type thing, like I think he should continue to do these kind of movies. But let us know what you guys think down in the comments section. If you've ever seen this movie, what were your initial thoughts on it? What are your thoughts now if you've watched it more than once? Would you recommend it to other people in your family or friend group or whatever, things like that? Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more.
And have a happy and safe Easter, everyone, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.